Hey everyone, welcome to part 5 of the Minecrafter's Guide to Industrialcraft 2 Experimental. In this episode, we'll be talking about the ore washing plant, the thermal centrifuge, and we'll also be delving into uranium, how to process it, how to enrich it, and how to make those nuclear fuel rods for the nuclear reactors we'll be talking about in a few episodes. Alright, now what I have here is a practical setup on how to use these two machines, and it's not, there's my alarm. Before I actually touch any of this stuff, I'm going to go ahead and put on my hazmat suit because we're going to be dealing with a bunch of different types of uranium, and it's going to be super dangerous. So I'm going to go ahead and grab a full set of gear. I'm using the QuantumSuit Helmet because it will protect me from radiation poisoning. And I know you guys don't want to stare at that little radiation graphic when I'm sick as a dog this entire episode. So the QuantumSuit Helmet, that's one of its perks. It will use power. In return, you will be protected from radiation poisoning. Okay, so I got my hazmat suit on. Let's go ahead and talk about the ore washing plant first here. Now I have a setup, and basically this is mostly IC2 stuff. I have 8 thermal generators giving me 160 EU per tick. I have it all being loaded through HV insulated cable into an MFSU, and you can see my power is right here. I've got the power lines running into the machines. Now these machines by default take 16 EU. Yeah, 16 EU per tick, but their maximum is 32. There you go. Okay, so I got them wired into the back here. I also have the wire coming over to these two thermal centrifuges, and we'll be talking about those in a minute. Now, one thing to keep in mind as you're building your setups, and this is kind of something that you might see in somebody's world. It's a little bit disjointed just because I wanted to show how this all functions together in a very clear, smooth fashion. But when you're building your setup, just check and make sure that you have enough EU to power all of your machines. So right now I have a bunch of these overclocked a little bit, so this one can take 66, this one can take 66 as well. We have 13 here. This one's using 123, this one's using 123, and this one's using just 2 EU per tick. So you can see I'm way over my 162 or 160 EU per tick output there. But since I'm using an MFSU that can put out 2048, I can really strain my system a little bit since this can transport 2048, but I can't do it for too long. So when you're doing, when you're building your base or making your setups, just keep in mind the amount of power that you're generating versus how much you are using. So the ore washing plant is a fairly straightforward block here. We have a spot for a battery. If you choose to use buckets here, when the bucket's empty, it'll just go down here, and it has a little bit of an internal storage tank, which can hold 8 buckets. This is the graphic that will tell me that it's working. This is where you input your ores that you want to wash, and this is the output. This ore washing plant is very similar to like the Greg Tech industrial grinder, which is really awesome. That was one of my favorite blocks from his mod, and he does have his hand in the development of IC2 Experimental, so you can see why this block made it into the game. So what I have here is I have a macerator here, and it's overclocked a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw, let's say, some copper ore. We're going to macerate some copper ore. And I have copper set to come down to this ore washing plant, so you can see it's coming down, and it's going to pop right into here. And we're going to get crushed copper ore. Now, you could throw this crushed copper ore directly into a furnace, and with most of these crushed ores, you're probably going to want to do that unless you have an obscene amount of power. The benefits that you get aren't really that significant, but they can really start adding up, especially if you have a lot of resources coming in. So you can see this little graphic is working here, and once it's finished, I get 2 tiny piles of copper, and I get a purified crushed copper ore, and that will be right in this slot, and you'll see that it goes in and out. And we'll also get stone dust, and the stone dust, as you've already learned, is used to make that CF foam. Okay, so the ore washing plant will kind of make byproducts of whatever you've thrown through there. So once you throw a certain amount, like about 4 different crushed ores, you'll be able to get another ore of another kind. So since I'm getting 2 nuggets per grind here, and it takes 9 nuggets to make 1 dust, it'll add up after a while. So There's no harm in crushing everything or washing all of your ores, but it's definitely not 100% necessary. Now, uranium is another story because you're absolutely going to want to send your uranium through here. So I'm going to go ahead and switch these around. I'm going to throw some uranium in here, and that's going to go into the top one. And let's see what we get with uranium. We have the crushed uranium ore. It's using a bunch of power right now. We're not keeping up. You can see I'm draining a little bit because I'm taxing the system too much, and that's because I'm using some of these other machines down the line. I think I missed the cycle. We're gonna get purified crushed uranium ore, and if we watch it for one more cycle, we're gonna get 2 tiny piles of lead dust and a stone dust. Okay, so we want that purified uranium ore because I will show you here in a second. Oh, I forgot to put that buzzer. When you do not wash your uranium ore, so let's say you take 1 uranium ore and run it through the ore washing plant, you're going to get the, or run it through a macerator, you're going to get the crushed uranium ore. And if you run the crushed uranium ore through the next block that I'll talk about, you're only going to get 4 uranium. Whereas if you included that extra step and purified your crushed ore, you are going to get 5 uranium and 2 nuggets out of this. So that's a little quick diagram of how good this is for uranium. And when you deplete some cells, you're going to get 4 uranium back. But we'll talk about that in another episode. Next, we have the thermal centrifuge here, and this is a pretty neat block. Again, you're going to get some byproducts from the stuff that you're squishing. This block does need to be powered up using a redstone signal, and I have some levers attached to the back of my machines here. And once this reaches the top, it's going to crush this, and it's actually going to eject it pretty quickly right down into there. But what we're going to get is for every purified crushed uranium ore, we're going to get 5 uranium, and that's going to go right in here, and we're going to get those 2 tiny piles of dust. And I just have this auto workbench going to create this because that's a pattern to do it. When you send in, let's say, through here the purified crushed copper and run it through the thermal centrifuge, we'll be able to see this for a second here in this machine, I believe. Yep, we're going to get the copper ore, and then I think we're going to get a tiny pile of silver or iron. One of the two, I'm not sure. But this has a spot for a battery if you choose to power it, which is batteries, and you don't want to wire it up. Let's see what this is. Oh, I missed it. Crap, it's on top. But this does take a little bit to heat up first, so let it heat up. It won't work really fast until it's all the way up to the top, just like the induction furnace that we learned about last episode. But basically, this is used to get byproducts out of your purified ores. So this is a really neat block, and it's going to be used for one other thing. But before we get to that, I do want to talk about this uranium because right now it's very dangerous. In fact, even having a full suit on, which is only really these 2 pieces, and having a piece of uranium in your hand is going to kill you fairly quickly. It takes about 10 seconds or less, and you're dead, which is why I have this on here. And I'm also in creative mode. But once you get your uranium ore, it's going to be uranium number 238. And if you combine 3 tiny piles of uranium, which we get from the thermal centrifuge, we get 2 and 5 from the purified. I know I keep saying that, but I'm just stressing it. Combine them in a grid like this, and you will get enriched uranium nuclear fuel. Okay? And once you have this enriched uranium nuclear fuel, you can go ahead and put it through a canning machine and combine it with a fuel rod, which is simply made by extruding out an iron plate. Okay, so that's pretty simple to make. Okay, so it's going to combine here. We're going to take enriched uranium nuclear fuel, and we are going to make a uranium fuel rod. Okay, that's fuel rod, and it's getting sucked over here to my chest where all my byproducts are, or all the end results are. You see it used that bucket there and dumped it in. So we have a fuel rod uranium. Okay, so that's how you're going to make these fuel rods. Now, let's take a look in here really quick. The recipes for these are so different, and if you haven't noticed this already, these stack now. So I have 58. Oh, there's that radiation poisoning. I have 58 of these in one block. That did not used to be the case. It would take up your entire inventory. It was super annoying, and it was awful. So these do stack So that's a really good thing. To make the dual cells, holy crap, this is so much less copper than it used to be. You used to have to smash so much copper plates and make those dense copper plates. I'm not sure if they'll include that in the final version, but right now I like it how it is. It's very nice. Just take one iron plate alongside two uranium fuel rods, single cells, and you'll get a dual cell. And even better is making the quad cell. It simply just requires four little single ones along with the 3 iron plate. And this isn't even dense copper plate. This is just regular copper plate. Don't know for sure if this will change, but that's how it is right now. So that's how you make your regular fuel rods like you've been used to if you delved into IC2 in previous updates or previous mods where it wasn't the experimental stage. Now the nuggets, if you look at the recipe, click on this, you can combine 9 nuggets to make this uranium-235. And when you look it up on the wiki, it says this is used to craft something extremely explosive. It does not work in the regular crafting recipes to make, let's say, just a regular nuclear fuel. Okay, like this. It doesn't work as a substitute for these, so not really sure what that's going to be used for. Hopefully it's going to be something cool, and when I know, I'll definitely put out a video and let you guys know. All right, next we're going to talk about MOX, or mixed oxide nuclear fuel, and that's going to be made by plutonium. Okay, and just like the big reactors mod, and I put out a tutorial on that very recently. Before you can make like the next stage of the big reactors, you need some of the byproducts from the first stage, and it's no different here. You're actually going to need to run some reactor cycles to be able to get up to this MOX nuclear fuel. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some near depleted fuel rods. You see, instantaneously get that radiation poisoning. It's very dangerous. But these are fuel rod near depleted. They're regular uranium. This is what you're going to get when you run your full or when you run a full cycle of your first reactor. Unless you use dual cells, you get near depleted dual cells. And what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to put this inside of here. You see I'm losing a little bit of power because I'm taxing my system. Alright, sorry about that. I had to put the brakes on some of my power. Once it gets up to 4,000 heat, it will start again. This will go green. And we're going to use this depleted cell in here, and we're going to see what we get. Okay, we get a tiny pile of plutonium and an iron dust. And once you get 9 tiny piles of plutonium, you're going to be able to craft regular plutonium. And from plutonium, you are going to be able to craft this MOX nuclear fuel. Okay, you're just going to take some uranium, number 238. That's the first process uranium. You're going to put it together with 3 plutonium, and you're going to get MOX nuclear fuel. And once you have this MOX nuclear fuel, go ahead and take it, put it in your canning machine, and you're going to get the mixed oxide fuel rod. And you can make these basically exactly the same way as the other ones. And you may or may not know how these behave as opposed to the regular ones, but we'll get into that again in another episode. And there we go. We have an MOX fuel rod, and these things are freaking awesome. So inside my inventory here, I have a list of all the different types of fuels. We have regular non-depleted, ready to go fuel rods. We have the ones that are depleted. They just look a little bit different. We have MOX, single, dual, and quad, and MOX depleteds, single, dual, and quad. We have uranium-238, which is this is what you get first. We have to enrich it to turn it into nuclear fuel. This uranium-235, again, not sure what that's used for yet. We have the tiny piles, MOX, tiny pile of plutonium, regular plutonium, and then these pellets of RTG fuel. And if you combine some dense iron plate and some plutonium, you get these. I'll show you what they do in another episode. This is really good stuff. It's basically like the nuclear fuel dumpster. Oh man, my quantum helmet is taking damage. Alrighty then. So that's how I keep stepping on that button. That's how you basically process. Let me get rid of this because this is awful. I'm just like dying from all this radiation poisoning. That's basically how you use these two machines, the ore washing plant and the thermal centrifuge. You're going to get a lot of byproducts again from both of these, and between the two of them, it might absolutely be worth it to install these in your base, and it might be worth the power cost that it takes to maintain a setup like this. Obviously, you don't need all these overclocker upgrades in it. I'm just using them to make the tutorial go a little bit faster. Oh, up here I'm using all these little tiny piles to make lead dust. Okay, so I'm getting lead dust here, and I'm getting tiny piles of copper, and every 9 I get going to this auto workbench and make this. This is a pretty ghetto system, but it works, so there we have it. So this is what we've gotten from all of our smelts. We've gotten a bunch of tin dust, which I don't have being processed, bunch of lead dust, and a bunch of stuff left over. So this is all bonus from the ores that we put in, which was only copper and only uranium. So that's a pretty neat thing. All right, so we know how to make our fuel rods. We'll get into, I think, nuclear in 2 episodes. Next episode, I'm going to talk about terraformers, Tulsa coils, and transporters, I believe. So that should be pretty cool. It should be pretty interesting. That's it for this episode. Make sure you check us out on all these sites here. We appreciate your feedback. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Leave a comment in the comment section below. And as always, guys, stay poised.